Howdy, folks. We've got Eck on the road here, in transit to his studio, but go to him now on the highway.
All right, so I got a great story for you guys. Okay, this is a great story. Okay, now we all have like older aunts or something. Like my aunt is 89 years old, and she just the other day I'm on Facebook, and I realized that I've liked something that Ken Campbell. I follow Ken Campbell on Facebook. I'm friends with Ken. Not just casual hockey friends with Ken Campbell, the legendary writer from the Hockey News, and controversial at times writer. Anyway, so and he put a post about his son and doing medical something like that. Really cool stuff. I liked it, and I realized that my aunt had also liked it. My 89-year-old aunt, who I wouldn't think would have anything to do with Ken Campbell, at all. Like there would be no. I can't imagine. Like what? So I go in to see, and her and Ken Campbell are following each other. And this is, this is my aunt who's lived in Collingswood, New Jersey her entire life, and so I call my mom up, who's my aunt, of course, my aunt's sister. Like, how does Aunt Peggy know Ken Campbell? Oh,
Uh-oh. All right. Well, we'll try to get that. We'll try to get that story later. But Ross, sorry, actually, you're breaking up. You're breaking up. We'll hook on the show when you get home, because you're breaking up.
Yeah, we can't hear you at all.
Okay.
All right, Ross, give us the pre-show.
Yeah. So in 1940, in April of 30th of 1940, the New York Rangers were given their playoff bonuses. So I have a letter that I had acquired a while ago that I'd forgotten about from Lester Patrick. It's not an original, but it's just fun because he sent it to Clint Smith, who was one of the 1940 players who won for the Rangers. And it's like, hey, you will find enclosed checks covering your share of the playoffs. $377.62 in Canadian funds, $636.60 in American funds. I costed it out. It's probably about $15,000 now. And so Lester Patrick writes, it's like, needless to say, for all of us, how sincerely I appreciate your efforts. And then he goes a little further and he goes, I recommended that the corporation give $500 to everybody. Well, to Colonel Fitzpatrick, but they ended up giving more. And then he's kind of like, wishing you a very pleasant and happy summer. And so this is where things have changed. It's like guys get 100 times that, sometimes not, I shouldn't say 100, but they get 20 times that, and or more, probably more. And I don't think their GM gives them a letter to send them a check because they're getting a direct deposit. It doesn't say have a happy summer because some of these guys are UFAs, and then like GMs don't necessarily get into that kind of conversation anymore because you don't want to ruin negotiations. It just shows how the world is, the hockey world.
Well, I remember. I don't remember specifically what year it was, but when Terry Sawchuk was with the Leafs, Punch Imlach had written him a letter at the end of the season, and it was basically like lose 10 pounds, do this, do that. It was like a laundry list of what he wanted him to do. And this is a Hall of Fame goaltender who, at that point was, if he had quit that day, would have been a Hall of Famer. And Imlach was like listing off what he wanted him to do in the off season because he didn't think he lived up to his level of performance that previous year. So
here's the question, though, and maybe Kevin knows the answer because he's the oldest. Kev, did Lester Patrick double dip here though because he came in net and take a player's share too?
I don't know the answer to that. I'd guess not, but that's a great question. Great question.
I'll just give you my Top Gun Maverick update here.
Oh, Russ.
No, I was telling Kev before you hit the live button. When I was a manager of a movie theater in 1995, the price of a evening ticket, not a matinee, the price of an evening ticket was $6. I just bought a ticket from IMAX for tonight to go see the movie. It was over $21.39. It's like, okay, I know everything has gone up.
We used to wear an onion tied to our belt back then, Mike, because that was the style at the time. Remember?
A what?
An onion tied to our belt. We sound really old.
Yeah, Mike had a clip-on tie back then.
Yes, I had the clip. No, it wasn't the clip-on. It was the strap bow tie with it.
Right. Yeah.
As a manager, but that was as an usher. As a manager, I had the regular tie.
With a tuxedo T-shirt. Yeah.
No, not no ruffles. It was a dress shirt. It was gray slacks and a blue blazer. So there
Mike, it will not be as good as the first one. That's my note to you.
Yeah, we can barely hear you. It's like we hear the road in the background. But
oh, really? Okay. Let me go closer.
How about now?
Yeah,
that's better. Yeah.
I'll hold it to my face.
There you go.
Really, something you would never do. All right, so let's get going.
All right, you started off.
All right, ready? All right, ready? Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, May 27th, 2022.
I'm Michael Lagello, and I feel the need for speed.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz, live from my lake house in Michigan.
And I'm Eklund, live from my Honda Element in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And, here we are. All right, last night, a couple of big games we got to start with. We got to start there. This is just, first of all, let's get into let's start with the Rangers in Carolina because, the Hurricanes just – their home, their ability to win at home is just it's crazy. It really reminds you of that season that they won the Stanley Cup because that building was so nuts. And again, that building has an incredible home ice advantage when it gets going. When that gets rocking, that place is something.
Yeah, the other thing I would say is if people are looking for reasons, like I saw Gerard Gallant said he didn't really care about the matchups. He should care about the matchups because that's where Carolina's making hay. I mean, when they get to choose who they match up with, they obviously do a much better job, and they handpick the players they want to go against, and it's really making a difference in terms of being able to get to the net and getting quality shots. Like they get much better shots at home.
Well, Russ, they were making a big thing on the broadcast, and you saw it play out last night. They're putting Stahl head-to-head against Zibanejad, and no matter what Gallant does to try to shake him loose, like put Zibanejad on different lines, Stahl just comes out every time. So it's up to Panarin and the second, third, and fourth lines to score, and they didn't do it last night.
No, I mean, Carolina played their game to a T. Gallant's not being truthful about matchups because he's been changing matchups through this whole series, so he's lying there. And he wants to stay away from the Stahl matchup because why wouldn't you? Like, that doesn't make sense we'll take it on head on, right? No. But what I did see in that game was at least towards the end, Kreider sort of asserting himself again. And that's what's going to have to happen because, even though he's covering Zibanejad, the Rangers have more players than that. And they're going to have to play better than that. But it was close. It was 2-1 for a long time. It was one of those games where Carolina played it perfectly. Raanta was good. Shesterkin was good. That was the game. Gallant actually said at Game 5 when I was there, he's kind of expected it at Game 4 or 3. Game 3, thank you. Game 3 when I was there, that he was expecting it to go 7. So it's going to the game plan he's expecting, but he still has to win this next game. So he is going to have to change some matchups.
Yeah, the pressure comes on now. Now it's on the Rangers fully.
Yeah.
Because, when you come home in that Game 6, that's an intense thing. And the playoffs are about this constant shift in pressure. Who is the pressure now? And that's something that we always forget. But you start to see it more and more as we get into the later rounds. I think that we can go ahead, Mike.
Well, for the Rangers to win in Carolina, Russ, I get the feeling they have to play absolute mistake-free hockey, and that penalty. And I can't remember who took the penalty that resulted in the power play goal in the second.
I think it was Miller. He went for the puck, I think, with his hand, and he accidentally high sticked with the other hand.
Right.
It was inadvertent, but that's the call. It's the right
Right.
call.
It was inadvertent, but it ends up being, you know, a fatal error for them. And, you know, Shesterkin gave him a chance to win, keeping that game close, and Kreider had a good scoring opportunity, you know, late in the third period. But yeah, you need more than one goal, and you need to seize on your opportunities.
And they had a breakdown. Aho had a complete open net to shoot at, and he hit the post.
Yeah.
So they have things to clean up, but that's what these long series are about. I mean, I don't think they're panicking because they know they play well at home, but I do think for a change, they do have to look ahead and say, all right, even though we have to win this game, we have to kind of figure out when we're winning this game, how we're winning it so we can carry that over to the next game too. So I think whatever changes you make, you might be making them for the next 2 games.
Yeah, true, very true. It's amazing, like, and the pace, you know, the pace that the Hurricanes threw up last night.
The Hurricanes were faster last night.
They were just faster, and that's surprising because I always think of the Rangers one of the fastest teams in the league, honestly. And I thought, you know, that the Hurricanes showed that they were just faster. Moving on to the late game. Go ahead.
Okay.
No.
Let's move on to that late game. But okay, I have to start here because I think everything sort of falls into place after it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no guarantee that had things broken the way they should have, that Edmonton in the final 5 minutes of regulation ties up that game, because that game was nuts. That game was psychotic. It was just, I mean, it was exciting. It was fast paced. You know, Calgary has a 2-0 lead, and that was, you know, you knew that wasn't safe. And then Edmonton scores 3 goals, and then Calgary ties it, and it's back and forth and back and forth. But 5 minutes left to go in the third period, and I'm sorry. You know, I know everybody has a differing opinion, but I've watched that replay about 40 times. And Kev, I don't know how anybody in their right mind, anybody with eyes, thought that Blake Coleman had a distinct kicking motion, kicking that puck into the net. Now here's the thing. Here's my solution. You know what? Unless it's a Pele type of kick, let everything that goes off the skate in the net, because this distinct kicking motion bull crap is I mean, I retweeted 3 goals that counted during the regular season. One was, I think, Nate Thompson when he was with Winnipeg, where it looks like Scott Norwood is kicking a field goal, and they counted it. They said it wasn't a distinct kicking motion. Coleman is being pushed by Cody Ceci into the crease, and the puck goes off his skate, and the puck was going in the net had it not contacted Coleman's skate, and they call it and they wave it no goal. The NHL really has egg on its face. Almost everybody in Legion were saying that should have been counted as a goal. It was an embarrassment and you know, that's not taking away anything from Edmonton, and that's not saying Calgary was going to.
You actually just did take it all away from Edmonton, but you know, you're right. But you know, again, that game, you watch that game, and that's your take on that. Like,
well, that's my first.
Yeah,
take.
like honestly,
yeah, no,
that was just a crazy, fun, entertaining game. And the Oilers, everybody owes the Oilers an apology, including me, because I dumped on their goaltending all year long. But you know, they're going to the conference final with Connor McDavid playing, and that was we had talked about it in the pre-show a little bit. About there was a quote, and I thought that you know, the lovable curmudgeon Sutter summed it all up when asked by a reporter if the better team won, and he said the better player won.
That's a cop-out as a coach.
One
player doesn't beat a team. That's a cop-out by Darryl.
Oh,
Sutter.
Come on. It was a fun quote, Russ.
It's a fun quote. Okay. It's a fun quote.
That's a fun quote. Give me a break.
I think he should have said it differently.
What do you want, Russ? Do you want first of all, we complain when the coaches come out and they spit out cliches, and then he comes out and comes with a good quote, and you're saying it's a cop-out. That's absurd. That was a great quote. That was a great quote.
Okay.
And it was a fun quote, and I thought it summed up that series.
Yeah,
if you're at the end of the season, you're Brad Living, and you get Darryl Sutter in the office, and you say, okay, if McDavid beat us, what are we going to do to beat McDavid next year? What are you going to do? What's Daryl Sutter going to say then?
Do you think he really doesn't believe that the whole team?
No, I don't think that.
Well, then let the guy just be clever.
Right.
Is that all right with you?
Yeah,
Let next guy will check it out.
Right. I'll give you the reason it's not all right, because when you say something like that, it's kind of like there's a lot of other players that did great.
Oh, come on. He doesn't mean that. No other player, like everybody else, would just see that the same way I did, as just kind of a clever way of saying, hey, Connor McDavid.
Off the hook.
It was just all right. Whoa. Stop. It was just let me talk.
Go ahead.
It was just a hat tip to Connor McDavid. That's all it was.
Yeah.
That's all
I don't know why Russ is upset about that. I really don't. But anyway, just getting back to what I said, I do agree with you, Mike, on that play. But I mean, it was just a small part of, and you summed up the game perfectly. It was psychotic.
Yeah, and it's not to say that Edmonton wouldn't have tied the game and won it in overtime, like they did, or that they would have won in Game 6 in Edmonton. Russ and I talked about this before the show. It was like I think Sutter was just encapsulating, because Connor McDavid basically was wearing blue tights and a red cape in that scene.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, and the thing is, if Brad Treliving goes to Daryl Sutter and says, what are we going to do to stop McDavid? How about what you did in Game 1, which is lay the body on him? I know it's tough to catch him because he's the fastest human, but they did it in Game 1 where Lucic hit him and a few other players hit him, and they stopped doing it. Maybe because they were afraid they were going to get penalized.
I mean, was there a point you're going to pull Markstrom too? Markstrom lost it, and he just went with Markstrom. He's just like, we're just going to leave him in there. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at some point, Markstrom is always going to be their best option, even when he's not playing well. I mean,
true with them.
You got to sort of lose.
Vladar's not there yet, but he has a lot of talent. I don't know if that's true next year, but for this year, it might be. But you still probably should have pulled him, because those 3 goals.
Yeah, I mean, you can make that case, and I think it's reasonable, but. I don't know. I would have gone with the guy that was good all year, but I don't know. There was something about that Calgary team, because I talked about them earlier, and they were so difficult to play against. And yet, I remember talking about this I must have been with a month to go in the regular season when they played against Colorado. And Colorado, like all the things that Calgary does, which made them hard to play against, they couldn't do against. Colorado, and they have a Edmonton Oilers style offense, and maybe
their defense isn't fast enough.
Yeah, well, for whatever reason, but I think it was a very impressive showing by Connor McDavid, impressive showing by the Edmonton Oilers, and Mike Smith, for all the complaining we've done about the goaltending, is going to enter the conference finals with a 230 goal save percentage and a 2.7 goals against average, and he's been fine. On goaltending.
I mean, I would I think they won in spite of Mike Smith instead of because of Mike Smith.
I mean, he wasn't exceptional, but I mean, he got the job done.
And I'm not going to apologize to Edmonton, because I'm the only one on the panel that picked them to win.
And I'm not going to apologize to Edmonton, because I think they're still a flawed team, and I think they're going to lose. So
actually, all right, so here's the funny thing. Forget about the flawed team thing for a minute, because even though they might be flawed in net, there are other good things that they added on to are balancing it out for now.
Go ahead, Adam.
I mean, I want to talk for a second. Okay. All right, cool. All right. Here's the thing. Watching I do agree that Smith made some big saves at big times. I do agree that it wasn't very good at other times too. But Dan Wallace on our website today put up a really interesting story. I mean, we got it's very intriguing, exciting, Battle of Alberta, all that stuff, fun stuff, right? Dan said he was watching 2 bad teams play against each other, and I thought it was kind of interesting. When there's a perspective there that when you look at some of the teams that have been eliminated, like Toronto, Minnesota, Florida, they're all better teams than Calgary or Edmonton, clearly.
Yeah, but it's who you face. It's who you face in the first round.
Yeah. His argument is like this is an argument that he's making basically for changing the playoff format, like you've talked about before, Mike, too. But basically, you were saying that as the fact that this is the Battle of Alberta overshadows the fact that these really aren't very good teams.
Well, but then the regular season, 116 points for Calgary is a total sham, and that's what you're telling me. And I don't think that's the case.
I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not agreeing with it 100%, but I think it is merited to think about for a second because both those teams did not play good hockey most of the time against each other. Like, really did not. This was not solid hockey.
It was chaotic hockey, and that
there was a winner and there was a loser. It was a great fun to watch all of it, but he's kind of right. Like that, these neither of these teams played great, and both these teams, I think Edmonton's got to change a lot before they go up against them.
You know what though? I think he jumped the gun only because if you would have had the non-playoff Islanders play against the playoff Rangers in this series, it would be the same kind of chaotic mess, no matter who was the better team, because that's what it generally is when those kinds of rivals play. And I mean those rivals.
I mean,
there's rivalries. Hold on. There's rivalries in hockey, but then there's ones that it doesn't matter what the team's record is. You're always going to get this craziness. And that's what the Alberta series is.
I mean, you can say, I think it was overwrought emotional hockey because of the Battle of Alberta. I mean, I've pointed out the flaws that I think that the Oilers have, and watching the Flames through 5 games and watching a lot of the first round series against Dallas, they're flawed as well because really their offense comes down from one line. The Backlund and Mangiapane line didn't do much. So and their third and fourth lines and their bottom pairing, they missed Chris Tanev so much that they had to put a guy who was less than like 50 or 60% in there because their defense couldn't cope with the loss of one key guy. So Dan is right in the sense that they were both flawed, but I mean it was an exciting series, so I don't think we should
say to watch. No one, he's not saying it wasn't, but we do because of the rivalry thing. We are overlooking a lot of the stuff that both these teams need to work on if they're going to get anywhere past. Like if I don't think if Edmonton's going to have a shot against the Colorado, for example. I mean, how far it's going to be how far McDavid can carry them, obviously.
Well,
but can he carry them past? I mean,
but there's other flawed teams in the playoffs too. The Rangers are flawed. The Rangers are very flawed, but they overcome them because of certain things that have happened in games. Like
the other thing I want to talk about with this.
Let's just go on with this. So let me have my say on this.
Yeah, please.
Basically, he wrote a story and explained with the way sports is every year. Like, hey, look, you can only win the games that are in front of you. Calgary did with what they, looked at their schedule. They won enough games. They won first place. But every year there are teams in one conference or the other that might be better than the other.
Sure.
But, and so no matter how you divide it up, this is the way sports always is. That's true. It's not a perfect, you can never, I don't care what format you use, whether it's 1-16 or whatever, you're always going to have an imperfect system where some team is going to get screwed because of the matchup. And every series has a personality. And sometimes, if Edmonton and Calgary played again, maybe it would be a low scoring game. Maybe they would. This became what it was. It was chaotic. So
I think for the league, you have to strive to be as fair as you possibly can. I mean, nothing is ever going to work out perfectly.
Right.
If you talk about the Vegas Golden Knights in that inaugural season, they were the underdog, and they were probably the worst of the 4 teams in every one of the playoff series. They won 3 of them, though. That's why you play playoff games. But what I'm interested in, Zach, is what you wrote about, and you look at Calgary, and obviously it's going to take them a little while before free agency sets in and everything. But really, that organization is behind the 8 ball in the sense that I don't think they have a chance in hell. Okay, go ahead.
Mike, you're right. But what I wrote about today was 2 things, and I do get to that. I did say, it could come down to Gaudreau or Mangiapane, and Mangiapane is an RFA, obviously. But if they want to resign both of them, it's going to be hard. And the reason I wrote that was because, listen, Calgary's maybe ahead of schedule here. Like, the one thing that we weren't looking at with the Calgary Edmonton series was the expectations before we went into the year of these teams. Like Calgary, the Edmonton expectation was we've got to win 2 rounds in the playoffs. We got to do something. We got to get somewhere. They've done that, right? But there was so much pressure on them to do that. And had they not done that, had they lost to LA in the first round in the game 7, which could have happened, we talked about what a disaster that would have been, right? So now they've gotten past that. They beat that up. And now they got past Calgary as well. That was their expectation. The expectation of Calgary in the beginning of the year was, they didn't make the playoffs last year. They were, they brought in Sutter. They're making changes. It wasn't to be this team that was a 116-point team. That wasn't where they were going to be. The expectation was probably going to trade Gaudreau at the deadline. They're not going to re-sign him. They're going to start over. They're going to move, and they're not. But then they go on, and Gaudreau has an MVP-like season. They have this incredible year. So that changes things. How do you to where you are now? But that doesn't change things. And with Sutter,
well, okay, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Sorry.
Let me finish. With Sutter, the way they were talking last night, Sutter was basically saying, "Yeah, this is good, but we're not there yet." He's like, and Sutter has that perspective of. He really did bring that perspective last night to me that made me feel like they're okay letting Gaudreau walk, like that was the plan the whole time, and that we're ahead of schedule. We got here. We weren't supposed to be here yet, but we're there. And that's the impression I got from what he was saying.
Kev, he may be okay with Gaudreau walking for nothing, but I look at that.
I don't think he is.
Yeah. I look at that team, and I was talking to Russ about this. So you've got Gaudreau as a UFA. It's potentially Calgary has enough cap space to sign him, but it's a question of whether he wants to stay there. And I think that's an open question. And then you have the Matthew Tkachuk situation where he's 1 year away from UFA. He's arbitration eligible. And if he doesn't want to stay there, then you're probably trading him for pennies on the dollar this summer because he's going to walk next year. So they're really
No, I think they're actually still okay as long as they can re-sign Gaudreau. But I think that's if you get this far. I mean, there's two teams in the same boat. The Predators are with Forsberg and Gaudreau, and we've seen
Forsberg was planning on they thought they were going to re-sign Forsberg. I don't think they thought as strongly they're going to re-sign Gaudreau.
Well, I don't know the answer to that. I've kind of asked around, and no one seems to know whether or not they were going to re-sign him because they would have traded him. I would have thought if that was the case. They would have traded him.
The season he's having in their 116-point team.
No. Before the season, if they weren't going to sign him, why didn't they trade him last summer? I mean, that's when you get the most. So. Right. I that's why I'm not really sure that that's really the case, that they felt like they couldn't re-sign him. But now that they've gotten this far, like, the two comparisons I always use are Tavares and Stamkos.
Right.
Yeah.
One of them did exactly what Forsberg and Gaudreau did and stayed, and one of them did exactly what those two did and left. So, it's kind of a scary situation. And in both cases, the general manager, if he loses the player, is going to take a big major hit. In his fan base for allowing this to happen. Because
I honestly think Gaudreau can't get out of there quick enough, not quicker than Steve McQueen in The Great Escape. Honestly, because my feeling has been all year, they didn't offer him anything last summer. They didn't even talk to him. And I think Gaudreau handled it professionally at the end of this press conference, but he didn't leave much room open for that. Yeah, I'd like to stay here. Yeah, well, I'll talk to Brad. He closed it a lot close. He just said he's going to think over things, but he's this close to free agency. He's going to go to free agency and then tell Calgary, hey, you got a chance of signing me like everybody else. Yeah.
I mean, that could be. I just don't have a sense of it. I think if they came and offered him $10 million, would he stay? I don't know. So
I think they were afraid to offer him $7 million last summer, and now they got offered.
I think you're right.
Yeah, then why didn't they trade him?
That's a great question.
If they didn't think they could sign him, I think they would have traded him. He had a really high value last year.
Yes,
his stock wasn't the greatest, Kevin. Like he didn't have what kind of season
he had a really good year last year.
He had a really good year last year. That's true.
Yeah, they last year they could have easily traded him, but I thought that they just. I mean, again. I didn't know this. Nobody told me this, but I just thought based on the fact that there seemed to be no effort to trade him,
right?
That they felt like they were going to sign him.
Now, just extrapolate from that. So Gaudreau has no interest in re-signing in Calgary, no matter what they offer him. Now, if they offer him $10 million, anybody in their right mind takes it. But say he wants to go someplace. Say he wants to sign with the Devils or the Flyers or whoever. Okay, so he's gone. And now you have a gap of a guy who scored 115 points that you have to make up. Matthew Tkachuk, as somebody pointed out in the chat, Randy pointed out in the chat, the qualifying offer on Matthew Tkachuk is $9.9 million because it was a backloaded contract, and his salary was $9 million, so 10% is $9.9 million. If they just qualify him, and he signs the 1-year tender offer, then he's a UFA at the end of the year, and you're repeating the same thing that would happen with Goudreau again next year. So you either trade him or try to get him signed long term. And if you trade him and say St. Louis is the place he wants to go, you think St. Louis is giving up Jordan Kyrou or Robert Thomas or any one of the good prospects? They're not stupid. They're not going to do that. So they're really in trouble. They're in big trouble.
I mean, I don't know about that. I think Tkachuk is pretty tradable. I don't care. You may not be able to get him. You may not be able to trade him to St. Louis, but like if you're a contender and you got a shot to win it, wouldn't you want to play like Tkachuk? So
I second while I move inside, guys. Okay. I'm home.
All right, good. I suggested, and I wrote about this a couple days ago. And it's been referenced in Toronto that Elliot Friedman said Kyle Dubas is looking to make what would be akin to the Kawhi Leonard for DeMar DeRozan deal that Masai Ujiri pulled off with the Raptors a few years ago, which was Kawhi Leonard had 1 year left in his contract, but he was a difference maker, and DeMar DeRozan was a really good player, but probably somebody that you would never win with. And to me, the 1-for-1 matchup of that in hockey parlance is Matthew Tkachuk for William Nylander. I don't think the Leafs.
That's what I'm saying, but that wouldn't be a bad trade for them.
No,
so,
it wouldn't.
I mean, I just think, and I just had this conversation. I brought it up on, I think it was on the last show about, what a GM told me years ago. And then after I talked on the show, I talked about to another GM about it as well. And he said, I said that's pretty, and that is that anybody can afford anyone for 1 year, any kind of contract. So I think Tkachuk would still be tradable if he had 1 year, even at a high contract.
No, he's tradable. You know what the problem is, Kev? Though they've got 8 UFAs and 3 key RFAs. These aren't just any old run-of-the-mill RFAs.
Right.
It's Shillington, Mangiapane.
Right.
Like these RFAs are going to cost them money. They're in a bad spot because 3 of their UFAs are on the blue line. Even if I'm right and you don't re-sign them because they're slow, the replacement cost of them is going to be high too to get faster defensemen.
Yeah, that's for sure. And as much as I do, accept the idea that that you don't lose these players for nothing because you have the cap space, it's easier said than done to add players that match the production levels of guys like Tkachuk, because especially Tkachuk, who has intangibles that are very difficult to find. So I do understand that, but I do think, they'll certainly get some kind of return for Tkachuk that will, at least I think be somewhat appease the fan base. But if they don't re-sign Gaudreau,
Well, here's the thing. You don't think Gaudreau's going to call Tkachuk and see what he thinks he's going to do? He's gonna, because if he doesn't think Tkachuk's going back, why in the hell would he go back?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I think those kind of discussions go on all the time. So, and they're just, it's funny, but in the NBA, they're in public.
Right. That's the only difference. You're right.
Yeah. But in the NHL, they're kind of behind the scenes. But I don't know. I mean, this team isn't going to look the same. There's no doubt about it, because they do have salary cap issues. But
and go one step further, Kev. Sean Monahan had season-ending surgery. I think it was hip in March.
Yeah,
he's 1 year away from being a UFA.
Yeah, I don't think they're really concerned about him. I think they would just as soon they trade him anyway. So,
right.
I don't know that he's part of their solution anymore.
So the one game tonight is Game 6 in St. Louis between the Avalanche and the Blues, and I was frankly surprised when I saw Colorado up 3-0, and then McKinnon doing that mad dash that was like a Gilbert Perreault end-to-end rush, Kev. It was the closest thing I've seen to Perreault, and he was much faster. But I thought, okay, great effort by St. Louis, but they're done. and they kept coming back, and they kept and they tied the game, and then they won on that weird Bozak goal in overtime. And I'm not, it's like, I mean, I don't think they're as good and threatening with Willie Husso in goal as they were with Binnington, but they're a good team and a deep team, and they could extend this to 7 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's really been kind of a crazy postseason, and we know historically that these kinds of things happened, and just like we thought. I mean, anybody who watched Game 4 between the Rangers and Carolina would have thought the Rangers have so much momentum. They're going to take that in there, and no, that just didn't happen. They got in there, and then they had Carolina had the last change, and suddenly it was a different type game. And the same thing here. I mean, it appears now that St. Louis has gotten some momentum. They, and certainly Colorado played complacent hockey after they built that lead. Anybody who's watched that game could see. And, there's always a danger of that. I thought Carolina started to get complacent in the game last night.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing too defensive. They were chipping it out. The Rangers started to get some pressure on it. So I don't know why that is, because you don't see that. At least I don't watch a whole lot of the NBA, but I don't feel like I've seen it all that often, that complacency. It seems like guys are still driving.
It's true. I think the NHL has always had a desperate playing desperate hockey is better. It's just always better.
Yeah.
And when you're losing, it's always better to play desperate. It seems like and that's when you're ahead, desperate hockey is harder to play. For some reason, I don't know what it is about it, but it just seems like we see it all the time. It's why there's no momentum at all in the Carolina Rangers series. It's
no, the momentum is the last change. That's your momentum. I mean, it's been that way, and I think this series is going 7. I can't say that it's Carolina can't muster up the strength to win at MSG, but they're 0-5 on the road.
Yeah,
and except for the one of the games against the Bruins where they were, I think, leading, and then the Bruins scored a bunch of power play goals.
Yeah.
They've been the worst of the 2 teams in every road game.
Oh, they have, no question about it. And I mean, talking about minus. They're plus 18 at home and minus 18 on the road, in goal differential.
Yeah.
Carolina, it's ridiculous. It's a crazy. I mean, the stats there are just absurd. And you do have to think a little bit of this is Brendan Moore is a really good coach. Guys brought this up the other day. Brendan Moore is a really good line matching coach, obviously. That plays in. But Stahl is also very underrated. I mean, Jordan Stahl is very underrated. I
don't think he's underrated.
He's not underrated for what he does.
Yeah. I always felt like he was the lesser of Eric. I always thought Eric Stahl was.
Because Eric scored more.
We could start there.
But Jordan brings as much as Eric brought.
What are you talking about?
When Jordan Stahl was the 3rd line center in Pittsburgh behind Crosby and Malkin, I mean, he was given credit for that matchup was one of the reasons why they got to the Cup final 2 years in a row, because it was an impossible matchup to have that guy as a 3rd line center, and other teams just couldn't match up to it. He's a great player.
He's an exceptional player. He's never really. I mean, he's been a dependable scorer, but he's never been a good scorer.
Right. And that's where Eric is way better. I get it. Jordan's great on defense. He is. But you can't put him in Eric's class.
Yeah. No,
I always put them. Jordan Stahl and Sean Couturier, I always put in similar worlds. And I think that they are similar type players. But
Couturier scores more points.
Yeah.
But both are really solid defensively, obviously. But Jordan's ability to win faceoffs, I mean, that has been huge. Talked about it, and it matters in this series. It really does. That we've seen a lot with that, I think.
I have to laugh. Jeremy Rutherford put a quote up here by Bernie Federko, who, of course, is still attached to the Blues, and he's kind of like, yeah, the Blues are in the driver's seat, but they, are they going to ask themselves, are we in trouble? I don't think they're going to ask themselves if they're in trouble. They still have Nathan McKinnon. They still are scoring goals. It's not like they're having trouble scoring goals. No. I don't think they're going to ask that they're in trouble.
They just had a problem finishing, and then
Colorado's in the driver's seat. Yeah, no, I think that. I mean, listen, I mean, we could see an unbelievable McKinnon versus McDavid in the next
versus
round.
McDavid.
That would be something. That would be something.
I would just say this, and I remember distinctly because a couple times they faced each other when Edmonton played Toronto. If Colorado wins tonight or wins in Game 7, you're gonna the matchup you will see is Nazem Kadri against Connor McDavid, and Nazem Kadri drove Connor McDavid insane because he did Nazem Kadri things.
But that was the old one, though. We don't know.
That's the old McDavid. This McDavid seems so unbelievably zoned in. Like he seems like he's going to explode.
I think Nazem Kadri.
Mike's got it figured out, Eck. So don't
look at McDavid.
Don't argue with me, Eck. I know what I'm talking about. Please.
Yeah.
I just got out of the car. My daughter was driving. My daughter was like, Mike never lets you talk. That's what she said to me as I was walking to the house. I'm like,
he is going to step on you a few times. So.
I know what I'm talking about, so shush. No,
but the bottom line, I mean, McDavid is like, this McDavid looks like he's going to spontaneously combust at any moment. Like he's
at a different level. I want to see if Kadri can keep up with him now.
No, there's not a chance. There's no way. I mean, Kadri, St. Louis did blow a game chasing Kadri around. That's true. This series, that's something that Kadri had his impact, right?
Yeah.
And Kadri taking out Bennington, whether or not you think it's legal or not, whether or not you think this is that or whatever, that changed the series as well. I mean, I think with Bennington, this is a really.
What's interesting about these potential conference finals, I was thinking about this, as I said before, usually it's hard to predict what the personality of a series is going to be. But if the Rangers win in the East, we're going to have Vasilevsky versus Shesterkin.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that's going to impact the series. And, we couldn't end up with Colorado versus Edmonton. And I don't care what personality it takes on. The Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid thing is going to be a big part of it. And, that just won't change. I mean, there could be another element to it that will be different, but those four players are so important.
You're talking about four of the most impactful players in the league. Definitely.
Right.
And four guys who are all of which could win the Conn Smythe, like all four of them. They're all
it actually helps McKinnon because McKinnon's still in the shadow of McDavid, even though he's more than a point a game. And we know he's a more all-around player than McDavid, but it doesn't matter that McDavid, he just outshines him. So this would be a chance for McKinnon to kind of put himself in a different light, I think.
And we have no idea how severe. Although I think I have a good idea of how badly Braden Point was hurt in that last game against Toronto because there wasn't even a rumor of him coming back, but. The fact that Tampa Bay is basically going to have an entire week off before they start the conference final, if he can breathe, he's going to be on the ice. But I have a feeling it was a torn ligament in his knee or an Achilles or something like that because he tried to come back on the ice in the second period of that Game 7 and he couldn't put any weight on it. So
I think Edmonton's break is going to be enormous for them too. Like I especially for Mike Smith. Like I felt like Mike Smith he looked exhausted. Like even last night
he was exhausted. There's no question.
He needs a breather.
Yeah, what's interesting, presuming Colorado does win that series, the Oilers, sort of lucked out in terms of I don't think there are goalies, although most of them are in the East, that would be the Oilers would be at a severe goaltender disadvantage.
Right.
Maybe they should have been against Calgary, but he didn't play well. Markstrom didn't. But and against Colorado, both those goalies have something to prove. I mean, Kemper has played well. Don't get me wrong, but I don't look at that goalie matchup and say the Oilers are screwed.
I don't think so.
The reason it's going to 6 games is because Kemper couldn't slam the door in the third period against St. Louis.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to demean him either. I mean, he's had some good seasons, but I'm just saying, it's really not.
The rest is going to help Draisaitl.
I mean, you're not talking about dominating goalie. You're not talking about
let's put it this way: if the Tampa Bay Lightning go all the way to the Stanley Cup Final and the Oilers do, we're going to all write the goalie difference there is so.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not? I mean,
Vasilevsky versus McDavid. That's what it would be.
It would be malpractice if we didn't.
That's the definition of low hanging fruit.
And it's the right call. I mean, it is a distinct advantage.
Now, before we go to the rumor chart, we have to touch on this because it was widely reported yesterday. And I mean, I think we have to mention this because both Russ and I were at the World Junior in Buffalo when this team played. And there was a lawsuit that was that they reached a settlement on. But apparently the group of Team Canada from 2018, and looking at the roster, I mean, we don't know the 8 players that were involved, but we know the 8 player. We know who was on that team, and it was a number of prominent young players. They essentially have settled this out of court, but the allegations that were covered in the Hockey News and TSN by Rick Westhead. I mean, honestly, it's disgusting. It's unbelievable that this stuff still happens, but it does, and it's really a blight on the sport.
Yeah, I have a question. It would be great if there are some lawyers watching that could answer this, but why weren't charges filed? Like this woman was sexually assaulted allegedly, and then but there was no charges filed. She filed a lawsuit, and then of course withdrew the lawsuit when she got a settlement. But that doesn't change the fact that if this indeed happened, then there was a criminal act here, and people should be punished. Like, I'm kind of bothered by all that, and I wonder, I'd love to have an understanding of how that works. Because the police don't need you can't get hit in the head walking down the street and then tell the police I'm all right, don't file charges. I mean, right. So I don't know how that works. I'd love to.
Unless it's a he said, she said, but it's like there were more than just the 8 people there at this bar that was, you'd think that there were witnesses and that the police were making statements from these witnesses. But in the end, so it's just really sad. But anyway.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the rumor chart for the ending here for this to bring our week to an end. Just going to go a couple of quick things here.
While you're pulling this up, we're not doing a show on Monday, so I can have some potato salad on Memorial Day.
Yes, I'll be out on the beach.
It's so American of you, Mike. So.
Yes, there you go.
There's 2 days a year in where I go to the beach that you're allowed to grill on the beach, and one is Memorial Day and one is
July 4th.
July, yeah. So I am the other, actually 3 at Labor Day. So I'm gonna.
Now, are you a grilled brat guy, hamburger guy, or salmon guy?
I am a hamburger guy all through and through. Yeah, I am not. I do not believe in salmon as a fish. I'm against it.
What? Okay, first of all, salmon is delicious.
It's bear food. It's fine. I like it, but it's like it's what bears eat.
Okay.
That is my second favorite quote now. It is bear food. Says that.
Bear food.
I know. Russ is not a meat. Russ is not a meat eater anymore.
I bought a couple of Impossible Burgers. I've done veggie burgers.
Yeah. Have you gone vegetarian?
No, but I would eat a turkey burger, but I don't eat.
Well,
my wife loves hamburgers. Yeah. Beyond Burgers.
Yeah, we're having hamburgers today here. But my wife is a vegan, so she will be eating Impossible Burgers as well.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing too.
No, she needs to try Beyond Burgers versus Impossible Burgers. I've been told Beyond Burgers were way.
I've had them both. I think.
Yeah, she's got. Yeah, my wife has had them both as well.
Portobello mushroom caps are fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's all about that. Yeah.
Let's talk about Natalie Kraftsav instead.
For me, it's Italian sausage and Hebrew National hot dogs.
Yeah, Italian sausage. Or no brats though, eh?
No. I've never been into brats.
No, okay, all right.
I'll go for a ballpark Frank. We'll have ballpark Franks. I like.
Pump when you cook.
That's it. They're literally, that's the only reason I buy them, and all hot dogs do that, by the way. So for what it's worth, hot dogs naturally expand when you're cooked. There you have it. But that's why I do it. But yeah, I do it. We do it up. 4th of July is the time to be here, though. All right, here we go. So this is a couple guys from the rumor chart today, a little bit that we're probably off the radar and people haven't really talked too much about, but I do believe these guys
have a very good chance at finding new homes this summer.
Mhm.
Kravtsov, we've talked a lot about, and we're
Yeah.
curious about where he's going to end up, but he's going to end up somewhere. These are the 4 teams that I've heard the most about. I'm sure there's other teams as well. We'll get, but this
I still think number 2 is the land for Kravtsov, because I think Gorton could call Drury, and it's pretty amicable. And I think that way Gorton has, gets a guy that he's believed in anyhow. And I end up thinking that ends up being the easier deal.
I agree with Russ, but I do think your percentages in your teams are right on the money.
Oh, so. Cool. Good. I definitely know Ottawa's going to be involved. And
Ottawa has interest. I've heard that too.
San Jose needs to do something. I've been told that, and that they would like to do something. I mean, they're obviously Marlowe's retired. They have.
Is the Evander Kane contract thing hanging over their head a little bit, because we still don't know what the end result of that is, and that could have cap ramifications.
It is, but they've got some cap space. They do have.
Well, yeah, the bigger problem in San Jose, and I've actually talked about this not with people from San Jose, but from people around the league, is they don't have a general manager.
Right.
So you really, there's not, I mean, they get Joe Will, but he's not going to make a trade, with not knowing who's coming in. So, if the Rangers, for example, were in a hurry to do it, then the Sharks wouldn't be part of it, just because they need it.
And I don't know about the Rangers trading with the Islanders. That's like the Sabres trading with the Leafs.
It's rare. It's happened. It probably won't happen.
Yeah, I agree, but I have heard that has been discussed from the Rangers side.
Yeah, and I think Kravtsov would like to go. It was to the island, so
yeah. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's a good place for him.
I don't know if Drury's going to be that accommodating to Kravtsov. That's the problem.
Exactly.
We need to definitely talk about Dylan Strom, because I'm hearing they're keeping him.
Okay, yeah, I would have 10% with them right now.
Well, that makes sense, Kev, because if the rumors are true about them legitimately shopping Jonathan Taves, then they need centers. They need somebody besides Kirby Dach to play up the middle. Yeah,
and Dylan Strom at the end of the year was their number 1 center, so they can't trade their number 1 center. So
he was really good, and I know I do agree with that. I've heard so many.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to follow the bouncing ball, because they did shop him, earlier in the year, and then he got playing. He started playing well, but I hear there are some people they're going to move.
Yeah.
But he's not one of them. That's what I've
That's
heard.
Interesting. My rumor cards will probably my rumor percentages will be affected by that for sure.
He made $3 million last year, and he scored 22 goals, 48 points. So if they keep him, they're going to have to pay him a lot more than $3 million.
Well, I don't think the money is the issue, because next year, in theory, $20 million comes off their books. Yeah. Although they are, I think they're going to make every effort to re-sign Kane. So
Pavel Zacha, okay, another guy. Like the Devils are on path, but for some reason it feels like Zacha is not part of their plans.
It's because of what he's going to cost, Dak. He's a restricted free agent with arb rights. He's 1 year away from being a UFA. They may be thinking that he's definitely not going to stay there, and they don't want to pay him. They have tons of cap space, so they can pay him, but maybe they just don't think he's in their future plans.
I just think they have other guys that they like more, and they feel. I think a lot of this is being driven by what I've been told is a very strong desire of Vancouver with him. Like Vancouver does like him, and Vancouver would like to make that move. The question is, Vancouver's got a lot of things they have to do, a lot of different situations too, and they don't exactly have a lot of cap space. They're in a spot there as well. So,
well, and I think we talked about during the year about that this would be a place that a Brock Besser would make sense going to New Jersey, because New Jersey's looking for offense.
Right.
What's a weird thing to say about the Vancouver Canucks, but that's what it feels like. And it's hard to say this considering they didn't even make the playoffs, but it feels like they got too much talent. Like they got all these guys, and they got to fit them under the cap. I mean, I know that's a silly statement.
It's not a silly statement, because I picked them to make the playoffs and actually win the finals. I looked at their talent level and I thought the same thing. I'm like,
they got a lot of guys and and they're all desirable players.
Yeah,
So,
they have a lot. They have a lot of guys in flux right now. So okay, you've got Besser, who's an RFA, 1 year away from being a UFA, so he's Arb rights, and you've got Horvat and JT Miller 1 year away from being UFA. And I look at their roster, and I said that we said that all. I think we all said this when the deal was made. The Ekman-Larsson contract is killing them because they need the money to re-sign Horvat and Miller, and they just simply don't have it because they're paying over $7 million to a guy who's declining.
Yeah, no, I mean he's.
Yeah, I mean it's a bad contract. We all said it was bad when it started, but the difference between if you have a pulse and you're a defenseman, you get 2.5 million.
Right.
If you're above average, you get 4 to 5. So really, they're overpaying Ekman-Larsson, maybe 2.5 to 3.
Yeah.
So is that 3 million the difference between keeping? I mean, that 3 they'd love to have it, but I'm just saying I think they got bigger problems than just Ekman-Larsson.
I totally agree. This is not
one guy.
This is not PK Subban. Like PK Subban at $9 million was playing like a $3 million player. Like this is like a different situation with
And he played well in spurts last year. Ekman-Larsson did. So I mean, I don't disagree, Mike. I mean, we all agreed they should have never done that. But I just don't think that it's their entire problem. One other guy I wanted to bring up. Mm-hmm. Because I just think when I think about this, it just makes me chuckle. The Penguins are trying to retain Evgeny Malkin, who can be a UFA. Right. And he said, of course, earlier in the year, he sort of implied, and it was in a joking fashion, but I think people took it as serious that, hey, look, I've made a lot of money. That's not going to, prevent me from staying in Pittsburgh.
Right.
But, now he seems to be walking that back a little bit.
Yeah, I've heard that
and too. I just, it was sort of implied that he got offered a 3-year deal at $15 million and he was insulted. Now, are you allowed to be insulted when someone offers you $15 million? I don't know. I mean, I think that's a little low. I thought they were going to have to pay him like $6 million.
Yeah.
I thought, for Letang and Malkin, if they could get them, the two combined for $13 million. I didn't think it was going to work because I think Letang feels he's been underpaid. Malkin has not been underpaid. He's actually being paid more than Crosby.
Well, I don't think it's insulting for this reason. 3 years ago, 55 games. 2 years ago, 33 games. And last year, 41 games. He's a part-time player. He's been a part-time player because of injury the last 3 seasons. He's great. But I think that has to be a factor with what and their cap limitations of what Pittsburgh is willing to offer him. And I don't blame them for not offering them $7 million.
Yeah, but I think the fact that they were willing to give him 3 years, I mean, that's right. I think how they saw it. And do we think that's all they would give him? I think they'll go up a little bit from that.
I'm with you. I don't think I think the 3-year thing was a little bit surprising. Like if he could get more money, but it would be a 1-year deal with somebody.
Well, the 3-year thing apparently was from his side because he wanted to match what Sidney Crosby because he's got 3 years left. So that was from his side. The $5 million was probably from Pittsburgh's side. And they figured, okay, well, if we're giving them the 3 years, we want to have it a cap friendly. I mean, not everybody is Mark Giordano.
Yeah. No, they're not. But he also has special circumstances as well. But okay, do they go back and say, all right, what if we give you 13 million over 2? So you got 6.5. Is that less insulting?
If a guy says, Kevin, that that he's willing to take less, he's made his money, $15 million for 3 years is not insulting. Like that's like completely.
No, yeah, I don't know. I thought I was pretty convinced, and haven't moved off this, that I think Malkin will stay and Letang will go. And I just based that on just what I said. Malkin has made more than Crosby for a bunch of years, and Letang, I thought. I hope I'm not wrong on this, but I thought I read he was ranked 19th and the 19th highest paid defenseman, and he's certainly not 19th in terms of production.
Right.
I mean, the man had 68 points last year, and he was 35 years old. So
He's so vital. To that
you know, he has the right. So, like, if could Letang in the open market get a 3-year deal for $8 million? I think he could. He might even be able. I don't know if he can get 4 because
I think he can get 7.5, 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So on 3 years.
Sorry, I was going to say, Eck, I wanted to mention one thing about Besser. I wanted to double check something. So I could see Seattle trading for him because he was recruited by Hackstall, but Hackstall never got a chance to coach him because he went to the Flyers. But that is kind of like a Dave Hackstall guy, and if Hackstall, recruited him himself like he did, he may tell Francis to try and get him.
But you're trading again. You're trading within division. You're trading within potential rival, right?
Yeah, but if they're going to lose him, I don't know if Rutherford's going to care.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is I still am a fan of I'm the only one who's a fan of the Ekman Larson Connor Garland trade because I honestly think Connor Garland was why they were making that trade. But at the same time, and I'd like Connor Garland, but this year Garland, didn't have the great season that I thought he would have, and now apparently he's kind of fallen out of favor too. He could be very easily moved. So it's like
they were talking about trading him before the deadline. That was out there.
I was so shocked by that. It's like, I mean, I don't know.
GM. It's a different GM.
Different GM, right? So that's what happens. Like you get traded in by one GM, another GM comes in.
Right.
It's like so that.
Yeah, there's an interesting statistic chart on Twitter somewhere. It was done by a Vancouver writer in points under Boudreau.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one guy that's way above everyone else under Boudreau, and that's JT Miller.
Yeah.
And they've signed Boudreau. I think, do they, there's been a lot of talk about, well, maybe he'll get traded, but maybe they should sign him, if you're going with Boudreau. And because he seems to thrive and Boudreau wants to play him. But, he had, I think it was something like 76 points in 50 some games, something like that. So, that's something to watch as well.
Yeah, that's really good. All right, that's all the time I have for today, folks. Enjoy the weekend. I'm guessing the next series will start on Monday or Tuesday, probably Tuesday.
Well,
you have an official word yet on that?
No, you have to wait for the other series to end first before they do that.
The Rangers series, if it goes 7, would be Sunday. It would be Monday.
Monday.
All right, we'll have probably be doing a prediction show when we see you on Tuesday is what my feeling is. So
that's in pain. Yeah,
we'll see you on Tuesday for sure. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you on Tuesday.